Graffiti is something I've talked about extensively over the last couple of years. And while I've touched on some other topics, on my YouTube channel, I'm primarily going to be talking about Graff. And one of the main ways that I'm going to be talking about graffiti is through this Topics Off the Top series. And the premise of this is pretty simple. I'm just going to fill up my hat with a bunch of topics. I'm going to pick some out at random, and I'm just going to speak my mind. So with that said, let's get to it. And I picked a topic, and topic number 1 is going to be the homeboy Kerbs from FN. For you guys that don't know, Kerbs is a writer from San Francisco from the Mission District. And Kerbs and myself started writing around the same time. I believe he started writing in 1996. But the interesting thing is, I didn't actually get to meet Kerbs until after I was done writing. But that's not to say that I didn't see the homeboy Kerbs up all over the city, but especially near where I lived. And around the time that I started writing, Kerbs was in a crew called FMT. FMT was in a battle with a crew called HTS, and I was in a crew called PBH that was allied with HTS during this time. And I saw Kerbs up a lot during this time, along with Brewer and Kind. And after this battle was over, the guys from FMT joined up with HTS, and FMT ceased to exist. But Kerbs kept on pushing, and he was pushing the crew FN especially all throughout the time that I wrote. And all during this time, people would talk about him, they would talk about how up he was, and people would ask me if I knew him, but I didn't. But finally, I was introduced to him at City College, which was a place that was absolutely full of graffiti writers around the time I started going there. And I stepped to him and I was like, "Hey, what's up, man? You write Kerbs, don't you?" And even before I could say what I wrote, which was Harm MBK, he told me he knew who I was and that he'd seen me up as well. And I gotta say, Kerbs is one of the friendliest dudes and one of the most down-to-earth dudes that I've ever met, whether it's meeting somebody through Graff or just meeting people, period. Anytime I would see him, it was always all love, and if we wanted to talk about Graff, if we wanted to talk about politics, if we wanted to talk about food or any of the things he was interested in, I could always expect a pretty interesting conversation with the dude. I want to say around the time that I met him in like 2002, 2003, he wasn't writing. But he got back into writing, and FN became a very well-known crew during the mid-2000s. And I don't know necessarily if FN started out as a joke, but FN stands for Frisco Nuts. So I have to assume that there was some jokey element to this crew's name. But the dudes in FN were not a joke. These are some of the most talented writers and some of the dudes that were getting up, especially on the bus hopping and bombing side in the city. Sadly, I lost track of Kerbs around 2004, and that's around the time he started getting really back into the scene and really getting up a lot. But somebody very recently sent me a picture of some Kerbs tags in the city and let me know that he's still around and he's still active. And the next time I'm back in San Francisco, he's on the short list of people I would love to run into and catch back up and catch some tags with. So once again, shout out to the homeboy Kerbs, and if you guys want me to talk about anything, just drop it in the comments and I'll speak on it. But let's get into topic 2. Alright, and this topic number 2 is going to be talking my way out of stuff. I'll keep it real with you guys. When I was active as a tagger, I was a fairly small dude. These weren't really all that developed, and if I was going to get my way out of situations, it was going to be talking my way out of them. On my TikTok channel, I talked about being chased by a hero who threatened to blast me and the homeboy K and talking my way out of that situation. But as a graph writer, I had to talk my way out of stuff multiple times, and this is one of my favorite times that this happened. I was in 8th grade at Everett, and I was trying to cut school and go out to the Graff store that was in Daly City at Top of the Hill. I was gonna go with the homeboy E, and as soon as lunch hit, we snuck out of Everett, we started walking up Church Street, and we made it like a block before the police caught us. That cop car just cut us off, and they asked us what the hell we were doing. The cops didn't give us a ride back to school, they just told us to run back to school, and they were gonna chase us in their car, and that's what they did. But when we got back to school, we were taken to the principal's office, and they started asking us some questions, namely, what the hell were you guys doing outside of the school? And instantly, I changed up my whole behavior. I started acting like I was really lethargic, like I was really tired, and I said, "Guys, we were just trying to go to the store, but I didn't have any money. So the homeboy E, he was gonna spot me something, we're gonna get something to eat, and we're just gonna come right back to school." E had already gotten into trouble at school, and he was already known as a graffiti writer. So the likelihood of the homeboy E really talking his way out of anything wasn't too likely. But I wasn't really known as anything other than a guy that was kind of a smart ass towards his teachers. But to be honest with you guys, being a little frail kid, a very skinny, short kid, and a very poor kid, this story was instantly believed. And we had stuff on us that day. I think we had a couple of markers and maybe even a couple of scribers, but they didn't even check us. All they heard was that I was hungry, I was broke, and the homeboy was gonna hook me up. And that was good enough for the principal and the cops at Everett that day. As you guys can see, me talking a bunch has always benefited me, and I have more stories of me talking my way out of stuff that I'll bring later. But let's get into topic 3. And this third topic is making money out of Graff. Last year I created a crew called CRK, and one of the meanings of CRK is capitalism really kills. And that might indicate how I feel about people making money off Graff, but not necessarily. First and foremost, I'll say making money is essential, especially in a capitalist society and especially in America. And for a lot of Graff writers, especially a lot of legends, the only way that they're going to make money off something like Graff, which is free in essence, is to monetize it, to maybe put out some merch that's fairly expensive or put out some markers that are fairly expensive, but it's the only way that they're going to be able to make some money off their own hard work. However, when I came up with this topic, I wasn't thinking about people in the graffiti world making money off Graff. I was thinking about people outside the graffiti world doing so. And more specifically, I think about neighborhoods getting gentrified and graffiti helping that process. I currently live in Asheville, North Carolina, and there was a legal spot in the River Arts District called Foundy. Prior to the River Arts District being created, this was an area that had absolutely nothing going on. There was abandoned buildings, there was people sleeping in them, and that area wasn't generating any money for the city or any landowners. However, businesses started forming in this area, and graffiti, along with street art, were used to market this area to people outside the graffiti world. And people could come, they could spend an afternoon here in an edgy location that had a bunch of graffiti and street art in it. They could spend some money, the people that own these businesses can make some money, the city got taxes, and everybody was happy. And graffiti writers for the last couple years could go to Foundy and lay some tags down, do some pieces, just do some hand styles and express themselves. And the River Arts District isn't the only kind of neighborhood in America that has this going on. And in some places, graffiti and street art are used to gentrify neighborhoods to bring money in and push people out. But the River Arts District was recently destroyed by Hurricane Helene, which had an absolutely devastating impact on Asheville and Western North Carolina. And more than likely, they're gonna have to flatten the whole area just to build something on top of it. And they're now preventing the same people that made this spot what it was from even entering the premises. And those people were graffiti writers. And to be honest with you guys, it pisses me off greatly. And if you're gonna use Graff as a way to make money and keep money, you need to keep Graff writers in the mix. But excluding us is just gonna spread Graff everywhere like I talked about in a recent video, and it's gonna produce some vindictive feelings from people that helped you get your place off the ground. That's going to be the last topic I touch on for this episode, but I got you guys in the next couple of days with the new one. And once again, if you guys want me to speak on something, just drop your topic in the comments and I'll speak on it.